Professor Maurice Kamto is multiplying efforts at reaching out and bringing together opposition parties to join him as he braces up to September 22nd. He did set aside to mobilize Cameroonians for a popular uprising to oust sitting President Paul Biya. Good evening, televiewers, and welcome to this other edition of Prime on My Media Prime. We are going to be discussing on that topic today, equally looking at the call made by U.S. senators for armed separatist groups operating within the southwest and northwest regions to give a chance for children to once again return to their classrooms as the school year drags to an opening. We are going to be discussing these two topics with our televiewers who are with our panelists who are already in the house. We have Professor Mark Anthony. He is a Pan-Africanist par excellence. He is a man of God and also leading a formidable Pan-African movement. Good evening and welcome.
Thank you, Leo, and thank you to my fellow panelists and the viewers out there, the million viewers watching at us right now. I believe that is another evening for education, and I would just want to call you to stay close to your TV.
Also present in the studio with us is Andrin Atemibako. He is a Pan-Africanist, always regular here with us to discuss some topical issues touching on our national and continental lives. We are glad to have you once again, Andrin.
Thank you much, the televiewers of My Media Prime at this hour. I hope that in this time of crisis we are in our country, our ideas will be able to forge a way in bringing out, at least in giving a contribution to a way forward in resolving the internal conflicts that we are having in our country. Thank you again, Mr. Leo, for this opportunity.
Okay, we are expecting the arrival of Prince Joel Mukage, who should be on his way, as well as Kamfu Jones, who is the Secretary General of Modekna Party. They are going to be joining us in the course of the program. We start with this call by the U.S. senators for schools to resume in the southwest and northwest region. Do we need external bodies to remind us or to remind on the necessity for pupils and students to return to classes in the southwest and northwest regions? Professor Mark.
Schooling is a fundamental right for every child, which should not be refused. It is surprising how for over 4 good years today we have actually stayed quiet and actually encouraged an atmosphere where our children are being actually deprived of the opportunity to get to be schooled. Because I want to say it is true that education is not all about schooling, but schooling has its place in actually forming a child to have the stability and discipline to fit in a society. I'll be sincere to tell you that every home is a school, but there is another dimension of it that is accomplished by public institutions. And when you send a child to an institution, the child gets to learn much from those institutions, which actually help give them a foundation on how to associate with the society and actually to fit in the mode of the society, and to be able to be one of those persons who tomorrow will have a say in the affairs of a nation, in the affairs of a society, in the affairs of even the homes around. And so when we see what is happening right now in Cameroon, where children have been deprived for years from going to school, it is actually hurting. It is actually aching. My own kids actually lost 2 years not going to school, and I think the first one was to write the ordinary level in 2017, ended up not being able to write, and till today she has not been able to write because she finally gave up and said she's not writing anymore. You see, those are some of the discouragements that come along with this issue. So the call from the Senate to from the United Senate is not something that is supposed to be coming from outside. It's something that from within us we should be able to understand that that is something that we should encourage, that the people should go back to school. When we get to stay quiet and behave as if it is something, it is for the benefit of somebody else, then it seems as if most of our brothers who are holding on to this idea of no school, they have a reason why they are doing so, but that reason is not beneficial to every Southern Cameroonian, not beneficial to most of our children. And so we want to also join our voices with the U.S. Senate to ask that these children should have the opportunity to go to school. If in case we have a problem that we need to solve, we should give an opportunity for the kids to go to school. That is very essential. It's not a call that should be made by any foreign body. It's a call that each and every one of us as members of this Southern Cameroon society should be able to understand that we need to implement.
Yeah, Andrew Atemibaku, he says that we do not need to be instructed from out of the country to note the need for children to go back to school. You are a Pan-Africanist and you hate it when we are instructed from out of the country for something like this. We've not also seen we are working towards the back to school in Cameroon, and we've not heard much from the civil society or maybe the members of our National Assembly come out in very strong terms that children should go back to school.
Well, it is true that in Cameroon today the citizens are living in a very critical and a very difficult conditions whereby there are certain things which are not longer a priority to most of these organizations that we have here, like the civil society organizations. So I just feel that it's only when people have assumed themselves to become children where they need others to tell them of what to do. You see, education, it is something that it's a God-given right to all human beings to acquire knowledge. And if you have in those two regions where education today has become limited or deprived to the children who are in that area, I don't know where we are going forward as a people. So I think that we should be able to set aside our differences and give priority to our younger generation to understand that tomorrow they own the future and they have the future for what we are standing today. So we have to be able to give these children their rights. The fact that they are not being able to speak or to go out or to protest or to pick up arms, but we should be able to defend their own rights and allow them to go to school. Whatever beef or whatever disagreement or problem which the separatist fighters or the people in the northwest and in the southwest who have problem with the government, I think that we should be able to know in which context we are placing things and allow an enabling environment for children to go to school, because I don't see how the plies of what the separatist fighters are fighting for has to do with why children are not going to school. So I think that, like I said before, the separatist fighters must understand that if they are fighting and hoping that the French system, which they claim has been marginalizing the English-speaking part of the country, we have not refused that, but they have been also influenced by the Western nation, because we have seen that most of the so-called leaders who are in the diaspora, who don't even have Cameroon nationalities, have their children going to school. So you cannot deprive your own child in those regions from not going to school, because I don't see how you want to let the children pay the price to support your campaign. The children should be kept aside and give them the room to go in and learn and be able to become a future leaders of the country which you people have been fighting for. You see, so it is not. I would not think it's a right approach for the international community, in my view, Mr. Liu, to ask the separatist fighters or the Cameroon government to see that schools resume in those two regions. We understand that, judging or looking at the current circumstances, it is impossible for effective schools to resume, except in very specific areas which we can say that, okay, there's about some heavy level of security, but that you may not find in all the towns or in all the divisions or in all the areas in those two regions. So my plea here is to, whatever differences we'll have at the end of the day, I will still say that we should not involve our children into it. Whether in a family where a man and a woman has a problem, at the end of the day we say that it is the children that will suffer. But a reasonable man or a right-thinking human being will always do things that will be for the interest of the children. So you may have problem with the government, or the government may have problem with the separatist fighters, but we must be able to come as reasonable human beings, so we don't have the international community coming to tell us on what we are supposed to do when we know the things that we are supposed to do. We have seen that at the point in which where we are almost like stagnant. We are neither going in front, neither are we going behind. On the same side with the government, are we not also getting a solution on the way forward in resolving this crisis? But in the time that we are pending, in this pivotal moment, we should be able to reconsider. I've always said that the separatist fighters who are on ground make decisions that favors your people and do not be influenced by the people in the diaspora, because you don't live there, you are on the ground zero. So make decisions that at the end of the day you understand that even if you should cost your own life, but your children are going to come out successfully, because the country you claim that you are fighting for, it only came as a result of the fall of the Germans. And when that part of the country was given to the British and to the French Cameroon, this is a core of the problem. So why can we not look behind time? Why can we not look behind when the French were not here, when the British were not here? Can we go back to the kind of people where we are? We understand that the transatlantic slave trade divided families. So the person you may be killing down there, as I keep saying, could be your brother. The person you may be killing down there could be your sister. So we must be able to come as reasonable people and take diplomatic measures on how to set aside our difference, because at the end of the day, it will take the Cameroonians themselves to solve their own problem.
Okay. We have just been joined by Prince Joel, who was not there while we started. Prince, good evening and welcome. And your take when you heard the U.S. Senate calling for schools to resume back in Cameroon. Is it to say that Cameroonians are not conscious on the need for children to go back to school? Do we need to be told from without the country?
Good evening to you, Leonard. Good evening to my co-panelists. Good evening to those watching precisely in Susa, the farming province Susa, that is very strong. And good evening to those watching within and without Cameroon. I think that this call is just one of the so many calls. Cameroonians that we are, we've always said that the children that are in the northwest and the southwest are what we will call the casualties, that are what have been caught because two elephants are actually fighting and they are like the grass. But we've always said that even if there is a problem, even if people want to revindicate anything, be it legal or illegal, be it constitutional or unconstitutional, the aspect is that let children go to school. The children who have not gone to school since 2016 to 2020 is 4 years. Maybe if this child were maybe in Form 1, the child should be writing the GC this year. But if you have children who stay, because the issue is that, a majority of those who are even fanning the flames, their children don't live there. There are those who have the means and their children are out of these areas. Now, a poor woman who is in a remote area, who cannot send the child out of the village to come and study in the other 8 regions in Cameroon, she's the one who is paying the price. It means that at the end of the day, she has now a child who is not educated. And like one historian said, that illiteracy is a social evil. It means that in the years to come, the children who are not going to school today are going to be more problems to Cameroon than the problem that is actually going on. But it is coming from the American senators, like your question was channeled. To me, I think it is not the best idea. It's not the best idea because since 2016 to 2020, where we are today, Mr. Liu, and repeatedly my media prime that I'm congratulating here has held programs whose objective were to actually give the need. I remember there was a time we had a season of program, and the objective was the need for people to go to school. Now, American senators have come out. It's a laudable initiative, but what has become of our parliamentarians? Is it that this topic is a taboo subject to be discussed at the National Assembly? What has become of some of the magnates that we have in Cameroon, even business tycoons? some of those big people who have in Cameroon, why can they not put this as a serious problem to the president? Because I feel that, Mr. Leo, if people can be grouped to make campaigns or do votes somewhere, we could also create any way for these children to study. So that the government, is true that when the crisis started, I remember that in Bonaberi, for instance, or all over Cameroon, there was a special letter that the Minister of Secondary Education, Professor Narova Lyonga, wrote to principals saying that they should give preferential treatment to pupils or students who are living in the Northwest and the Southwest, to see that they do not go through the administrative bottlenecks, so much so that they are employed. I want to still say again that, Mr. Liu, it is not a good idea that it is coming from American senators. I believe that America has its own problems. I believe that this problem has been there for 4 years, and that if America actually, far from writing, if they actually wanted to give a helping hand, they would have done so. The outgoing American ambassador to Cameroon, Henry Ballerin, he had at one time said he discussed with the president, and he discussed two things: ensure that the Anglophone crisis comes to an end, and also ensure that the political tension that is ongoing in Cameroon comes to an end. We ask ourselves now, months after the American ambassador has left Cameroon, why is it now that the senators are coming? Is it that they feel that he had signaled the president and the president did not react? We have seen other people like Thibault Nagy, he himself too said, even if what that is going on, let children go to school. At the end of the day, Mr. Leo, the children that were not sending to school today are going to be more problems to the English-speaking Cameroonian in the days ahead. I have seen people who have not gone to school the way they behave. Somebody who is an illiterate, his behavior is not the best.
Okay, the U.S. senators is saying that no school should be attacked, also citing other health facilities amongst others. But let's even look at the school boycott. Who suffers?
You see, that's the problem, because we are the ones suffering. I just cited a situation about my own children who have not been going to school.
Yeah, but the question is there effective school boycott? Because I did a study 2 weeks ago and discovered that every person who has the means from the Southwest and Northwest region has taken their children to the Francophone. So
that is what
is there effective school boycott at all?
There is effective school boycott. It is not because some have actually transferred to the south, to Littoral or to the west, that we will say that everybody moved. There are those who could not move. Yes. They are still in those areas.
Those who cannot.
Yes, who cannot.
That's my question. Who
and at that point, those people are suffering. So that's why I said at the end of the day, it is still the Southern Cameroonians who are suffering. And worst of it is that we are creating a future which is going to be bleak for our own children. And that is just the worst aspect of it. You see, I remember in 1990 while we were in school, I remember a day when we actually went to school. That day, police, the helicopter came to school and threw tear gas right in school. Some people will be saying that they are keeping their children at home because they are afraid of bullets. I think that even in the midst of that, it is possible to move the children, let them school, because we can't keep on holding on to that, because if we do that, we are going to raise children who are going to be, in fact, backward. I see today most of the Anglophone schools that used to be in the Northwest, the big schools that were there, are no more having pupils. They are no more having students. Why? Because of this crisis. It is causing a situation where there is an exodus, mass exodus from our areas to this, from the Anglophone section to the Francophone section, and that is not that's in no way actually helping the crisis, or say the boycott, because it will stop some people from going to school, but some are going to suffer because they are unable to financially meet up with such demands that you have to come and rent a new house in maybe in the Littoral or in the West or anywhere in the Francophone sections of Cameroon. That finance is not there. And then coupled with the situation presently, the COVID-19 issue, where some people are financially unable to make it in a day, simply because should I use a word, an invisible virus is actually attacking them, and the economy is getting more hard. And in such a situation, you will see that the people were able to stay back at home, work their farms, have their small money, make sure that their children are going to school and feeding from the farms. They are unable to do that. And what do you think that they should do? Some of them are in the forest. They are living practically in the bushes. And so when you ask that question, is it effective? Yes, it is actually effective, because a lot of persons are not going to school. Some of them are right in the bushes.
Yeah, but who suffers? The poor.
The poor. I like that. It is the poor who are suffering, because those who have the money, they either carry their children to the French section of the nation, or they even send the children out of the country. And those who are supposed to go through this stress and suffering are those who are unable to meet up, and those are the poor. So we need to stop this before it's too late.
Now, while we're on to the school boycott, for so long, Andrew Atemibako, we saw the school boycott introduced some 4 years ago. Till date, we are still holding on to it. Why?
Well, I think that is a very high level of illiteracy, because I cannot understand a right-thinking human being who would feel that if they have a problem with the state, their children should not go to school. It is hard to understand that even till now, not only do we have the population rate of Cameroon today, 60 to 70% is made up of the youths below 25 years of age. And in that region, those two regions we are talking about, we have a population of about 5 million. Now we don't want to, in the 5 million, we have about 60% again, which is still the youths and still below 25 years of age. So the question here is, the people who feel that if the children do not go to school, they will be able to achieve their goal. How is it possible when the below 25 years of age makes about 60% and are not going to school? So you realize that the future is a very dark one. So what I'm suggesting here, like I did when this crisis began, make decisions at the end of the day that will worth your blood. You cannot fight a cause and you take a child or your children and you mortgage them as a price for you to achieve your goal. It doesn't work that way. I have said times without number, the people in the diaspora have different nationalities. They are being paid by certain organizations to destabilize your region, to destabilize your country, because at the end of the day, you cannot fight for a country where that's where you get up every morning. The best thing you can do is to build up your region and fend for it and defend so that your children should have good education. The question here is, where are the leaders in those regions? Where not only where are the elites, where are the church leaders? These are the things that we are saying as Pan-Africanists, that at the end of the day, when things are not normal, we should not follow normal procedures. These are times where people need to go out and defend their nations and defend their communities and defend their region so that their children can have a better tomorrow. We cannot ever expect change to take place by a miracle in those two regions. It's going to take the efforts of the people who are living there to decide to have their own destiny chartered by themselves. So what I'm saying here is, Mr. Leo, at the end of the day, I have said that when you live in those two regions, because it is in the interest, when this whole thing began, it was in the interest of the government that at the end of the day, if those two regions are being destabilized, it gives them room to enter and militarize it and get most of the economy driven this way. That's why we are seeing a lot of migration taking place in a population of 5 million. If due to this crisis we have had thousands of Cameroonians in those two regions that have fled out of the country. I remember in those early months we had tens of thousands of people in the Brazilian border, in the Mexican border, roaming to forge their way into the United States and into Canada. We are talking the ones in Nigeria. We are talking the internally displaced ones. So at the end of the day, what are the population of the citizens living in those two regions? So at the end of the day, I have given in my own analysis that when you live in a region like that, you can never take a neutral position because it's a conflict zone. You will be assumed whether with the government or whether with you cannot. That's why we have seen how a lot of people have died due to stray bullets and they didn't have any hand in this issue. And I advise, move out from those environments
until when it is safe, then you can get back to your normal life, because at the end of the day, this is already 4 years going. I gave in my own analysis as a political analyst that it would take about 10 years before they even start thinking of initializing dialogue, and effective dialogue that will bring about a solution. It will take again another 5 years for that dialogue to be instituted.
That brings me to the question that I'm asking you, Prince Joel. Now, should we assume that the conflict will run on for the next 5-10 years, like he's saying? Will our children stay at home in these two regions for the next 10 years?
Mr. Liu, we said it on this platform and other platforms that the Anglophone crisis is not a crisis that will end in the next 2 years. It has a very long time. It has a very long way. And I'm saying so because when you look at the position that both actors who are concerned are taking, it is clear indication that the crisis will not be solved in the next 2 years. First, the fact the government feels that separation should not be discussed on any table. That's the first aspect. And then on the other hand, you now have the separatists, a majority of them who say it is separation or nothing else. Now, when you have two people who have two extreme positions, it becomes very difficult to keep them on the sitting table. Even when you bring them on the sitting table, you will only be argument, and at the end of the day, there will be no result. Now, when this is going on, the person who suffers is a poor man. Is a person who cannot afford. You know, a lot of people have been killed. A majority of some of our big politicians, when the crisis started, they moved all their families out of the Northwest and Southwest. I know so many who have, it means even to the grandchild is not in the village. All of them are maybe in Yaoundé or in Douala. They have the means, and they lodge them in very big hotels. Or big, they've rented them good houses where they are staying. But there is not one poor woman who is trapped. There is one poor who is trapped, who may even have the fare to want to come to town, but has no way to go to. Mr. Liu, before the Anglophone crisis in 2016, I'll give you a very simple example. We used to pay 3,500 francs from Bamenda to Misaje, 3,500 francs from Bamenda to Camer. But because of the crisis today, it's 18,000 francs. That's the price.
The fare to whom ranged from 1,500 to 2,000. Today, everybody's paying 10,000.
That is, those are the consequences. So there is one mama who maybe want to leave because there are a majority of some of them who just left because of the crisis, and they were seen around town. They did not have where to stay. So many. I know people in Bonaberi who have more than 25 persons living on the floor. Not one, not two. But now, at the end of the day, who suffers is the poor man. And when you look at what has been ongoing recently, Mr. Liu, it's to an extent we feel, like I used to say, that a lot of persons have deviated from the Anglophone cause. A lot of persons. Because I will not understand how a general is killed in a credit union. I don't know who was trying to save in that credit union. So you start noticing that people are shifting positions. And because they are shifting positions, who suffers is the common man. Look at what was recently launched, Bamenda Clean. The echoes I have from Bamenda every day, I was speaking with somebody today, the echoes I have from Bamenda is not positive. Uniform officers get into houses, interrogate people, and the confrontation is not the best. We have information every day. So the common man who is trapped in Bamenda, and the governor wants to clean Bamenda because I think there's a communique from the governor today saying that
it should be extended beyond Bamenda.
It should be extended beyond Bamenda. Who suffers? It is a person who cannot leave Bamenda. And like somebody said on this platform some time ago, that the military corps may not be may not be a bad one, but there are some people inside who are spoiling it. Mr. Liu, if you travel and a uniform officer asks you just ID card and you don't have, what you go through? Talk less of somebody whom they have information that is accommodating amber. Because these guys don't live like that. Before they leave and enter a house, they have information. And once they have directives from their general, I want to look at a uniform officer who is just maybe 6 months into the profession. As the general says, we are keeping Bamenda clean, I understand what somebody is going through in Bamenda. I understand what somebody is going through in other areas in the Northwest. At the end of the day, who suffers is the poor man.
Okay.
That is why long ago I've always proposed that let us look for a way out of this crisis. The more it degenerates, the more consequences we are going to have.
Now, are children used as a political pawn here? That is the education of children are now jeopardized because of politicians.
That is true to an extent, Mr. Leo. Why did I use the word to an extent? I am using that because primarily the problem, though it is now a political issue, it started like a social issue which had nothing to do with politicians. But in order to actually solve the problem, it was supposed to be something that politicians were supposed to deal with. But look at it, they are the ones who are actually adding the fuel on it. They are the ones who are actually keeping the situation in which we are having right now. A friend of mine just sent something to me today, which is what we published. He says that politicians are evil. He said the evil of politicians is to an extent where they are able to, when it comes to political violence, they make sure that they rally other people's children. But when it comes to their own, when it comes to moments of benefit and moments of enjoyment, they actually take other people's children, they bring in their own children and give them those benefits. And those are the things that we are looking at, Mr. Liu. The society in which we live in is a society which is so corrupt to an extent where people want to benefit at every means possible. So they don't care what the common man out there suffers. And if you look at the kind of communiques that they pass, they are not communiques that will help in empowering our society or our children. They are looking for ways to score political goals. They are looking for ways to make more gains politically at the detriment of who? At the detriment of the poor, at the detriment of the lives of kids. Because I'll be sincere, Mr. Leo, that if this problem that we are suffering today, talking about children going to school, if it was handled the way it was supposed to be handled, we will not be here today. We'll not be talking on an issue like this today. But simply because some guys who are so heady and so hot-headed feel like they can run things the way they want. I remember when a minister told teachers that they are, in fact, 2 cubes of sugar in a basin of water. That is a terrible statement to be made by somebody who is out to solve a problem. Another one called an administrator sent to actually take care of people, call people dogs. When you hear things like that, you know that they don't care about the common man down there, not to talk of the kids. And so when we are even talking about the separatists who are supposed to call to give up the idea of boycott of schools, the main problem is supposed to be for channel towards those who can solve the problem. Because I'll be sincere to you, Mr. Leo, these separatists, they are being also pushed to do what they are doing because there are some individuals sitting on top of them. Those are politicians.
That's what I'm talking about. When I say politicians, it is not limited to
the government direction.
No.
Yes, so those are the politicians who are playing this game, who are making sure they don't care. First of all, they are sitting out there in Europe. Some of them in the United States, their children are going to school. They are feeding fat. Some of them are, if you see some of the pictures that they actually post, you get to feel so sad that look at the way they are living big. None of their kids are here. But they don't care about our own kids that are here. So they want to make their gains. They don't care about us. They want to make their gains. And those are the kind of people that no Southern Cameroonian should look up to. At times when we talk like this, some Southern Cameroonians feel like, okay, maybe you are supporting a particular direction. No. We are looking at the situation on the ground and it is not favorable for any of us. You can't keep on yielding to unnecessary manipulation and thinking that you are fighting a cause which is for the benefit of some particular individuals. Okay, that's my problem.
Okay, this one says the call for schools to resume by U.S. senators is perfectly correct, but what about security, schools and thousands of houses that have been burnt down? Please, they should sit down and focus on how they will end this conflict rather than speaking of schools resumption. Our lives is very important than school. Ayuk Valerie Bato, writing from Bonge subdivision. Okay, this one says good evening to you all in the studio, folks. Instead of the learned panelists talking about school resumption, they should rather talk about solutions to the cause of the problems they kept our children out of school. We prefer illiterate kids than dead fundong. is writing from the Middle East. Fondong, I don't know. You're in the Middle East. I don't know, but let me take this last one. This one says, okay. Ask the person who just wrote whether he is not going to the market or hospital because of insecurity. Okay, this one is writing from Yaoundé, and this one says, the same children you said are afraid of bullets are the ones selling bitter cola in bars at nights, are the ones hawking in the markets. This is just madness. The same French you say as less language are the ones those who you sent their children over will use gradually. Sir, all round is madness. Anglophone system of education was respected before by Francophones, but all those schools are now over there. It will shock you. Ask yourself why at UB you find Francophones more than Anglophones in the Douala University. Okay, I think the message is you get the concern of. Well, some persons say, oh, because of insecurity, but do we understand the security concern at them?
Well, the security concern should not be something for us to put aside, because it's a very vital and major point to be considered, because at the end of the day, lives matter. You know, I always keep saying that in every nation or in every organization, the first thing which is always vital, that should be the essential a point of focus, should be health. So when I talk about health, I talk about security. So when that security is in jeopardy or is not guaranteed, life can never be normal as we expect. So whatever plans or whatever projects or whatever a campaign we have, the first thing is creating an enabling environment for those things to actually be initialized. That is how people do things. But we must also understand that, because at this level where we speak, sometimes when I listen to Cameroonian politicians, I realize the level and the limitation of their understanding. You see, you cannot fight a battle from under a village point and you expect a global change. It's not possible, because what we are discussing here today, it is a struggle which is being fought at the global level, and there are people there that makes decisions that affects us. So until we begin to understand that there are certain decisions that we need to take to come together in order to present ourselves at that global front in order to get sovereignty, because at the end of the day we must understand that there's a campaign, especially in the West African zone, for the depopulation of the African population. So poverty is a multi-time billionaire industry for a lot of Western nations that are interested in the depopulation. So in a country like Cameroon, you have a poverty rate which is between 7 years, a period of time, we are able to create 8.1 million poor people living below 1,000 francs a day. So at the end of the day, you look at the amount of poor people that are in Southwest, and you look at this crisis which is happening right now, you come to realize that it is in the interest of some people that this crisis should go on, because at the end of the day, the people that will die will be poor people. Rich people hardly die because they are always far away from oppression. So the aspect of depopulation is something that we must put into consideration and understand that. Cameroonians need to come to understand, and that is why I was saying, Mr. Leo, in some other platform, that for those who may say that it is federation that will bring about solution in this country, I said it's not possible. To those who say it is decentralization, I still say it is not possible. To those who may think that it is special status, the special status is just a small token from a fallout of the Grand National Dialogue, which was held there for the funds and the elites of the Northwest to go and cry their die. So this one now the government is using to wipe their tears. So what I'm saying here is that two brothers that were separated by slave trade, and this is what I'm going to say as a way forward, that Cameroon will regain its sovereignty, because the decisions that affects Cameroon today, like I still say, it is politics that is the umbrella of every sector in every nation, including the churches, because when a government takes a decision, it affects including the churches, and these decisions are being taken at the global level. So what am I trying to say here? It will take the Cameroonian population to understand that two brothers, as some other people will use the word, that
2 cubes of sugar that it was supposed to dilute, whether it has not diluted or whatever terminology they use. But I am saying here is that we are people of the same origin, and we must come together to protect our national interest that will give our people the right to self-determination, and they'll be able to get jobs, be able to charter their own destiny, and like I still say, and mothers to be able to love their children. So Mr. Leo, my point here in this issue of the Northwest and the Southwest, it is true that every war is a business, and a lot of stakes interests are there, but nobody should be able to support the prices of his own personal interest or the people who are above and mortgage the life of his own children. This is witchcraft, and these are demonic a manipulation in open daylight. And this is a time where, let me give you, let me say this. I remember in 2001 in Holland, there was a mayor who was elected as mayor in Rotterdam. He was called like the Burgermeister. That was like the mayor. This man was a racist and he was a homosexual. And Rotterdam was a city that was being populated by a lot of Africans. When this man came into power, it took the church leaders, the body of Christ came together and took a decree that the fact that this man said he does not like black people and is a homosexual, he cannot rule in this community. And it took 2 weeks. The man's mandate ended. It took another white man that shot him dead. What I'm simply trying to say here, Mr. Leo, it is a time enough where church authorities and leaders should leave those churches and leave those people that they have been extorting from and go out in the street and see the demons that are roaming our street and killing our children every day where lives are being taken. These are when the Bible says that we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, or our weapons are not carnal. It's simply trying to tell you that they are very wicked human beings, that you need certain declarations that God will back you and these people will go out of power. It is a time where the population has a responsibility, the church has a responsibility, the government has a responsibility, and the youth of this country has a responsibility that makes 60%. If change is going to come to this country, it will take us.
Okay, it will take us. Good evening, Mr. Leo, and all those in the studio. This crisis is suffering, but the poor people in southern Cameroon. For my own idea, let the U.S. remove all those politicians in the U.S. that call themselves Amber Chiefs. Let them go to Cameroon and solve the problem. James is writing from the United Arab Emirates. Good evening to you, James. Good evening, Mr. Leo, Prince Joel, and everybody in the panel. We will never progress in this country, Cameroon, if the government in place is still there. Chin Clinton Ikanyo Beruni writing from Douala. Fonjong Gwendolyn Tembeng from Kumba says, what is Cameroon Parliament and Senate doing that they are not talking about our situation for 4 years now? Why are they paid? For 4 years, people are dying in thousands. They should leave their office and come back home. They can't work well. Okay, good evening to you, Gwendolyn. Prince Joel. Let me take 2 other messages. Greetings, Mr. Kum. If someone is more than you, please, you carry his back. Please, let's stop this much talking. It's not helping matters. The masses are suffering. Enough is enough. John is writing from Mayu Banyu. Good evening to you all in the studio. Let the government build back the schools that were burnt and destroyed so that our children can go back to the schools on October 5th, because our children must go to school. Mr. Mombe is writing from the... Good evening to you all in the studio. What is the need of going to school that you will graduate and searching for a job becomes your own job? I'm Ernest in mile 6 and Quen Bamenda. Good evening to you, Ernest. Good evening to dear panelists in the studio, and a special greetings to Prince. It's Steve from Kumba. It's but normal that children must go to school, but how about those children who are in the bushes? What provisions has been made for their education, cause their villages where their schools were located are no longer functioning? So how about that? But let's look at this school boycott. It's been going on for 4 years now. How has it changed anything?
The issue is that at the level of the international scene, it has changed something that it gives. If the American senators sit and say schools should go back, it means they are aware of the fact. Yeah, it means that
something is not right. Yeah,
it means at the level of the international scene there is this awareness that there is a problem in a country called Cameroon, and specifically in the northwest and southwest regions. And secondly, at the level of Cameroon itself, Mr. Leo, there is this aspect, take it or leave it, there is this aspect to tell the government that there is somebody who controls the common man down there. Because I said, I'm sure on this platform, that it is, but to an extent, ironical that those who are not even living in the country are the ones calling for boycotts and people respect. Whereas there is a government that is with the people, that because we know that there were days, let me give a very simple example. May his soul rest in peace, the former mayor of Boya. We know what he used to do. Each time they called for ghost towns, he would go and double locks. It means he was like, people must not respect ghost town. But the people kept respecting. And you start asking yourself that it shows that the person who controls, because there was even statements from all other areas where the mayors, as well as administrative authorities there, had told the people that if you respect ghost towns, you are going to double your, we are going to...
Now, the question I'll ask you is, you say they respect, is it out of fear or is it out of conviction?
I'm making my analysis and coming, Mr. Liu. Conditions under which people are killed. A guy in 2018 that a video went viral on social media was brutally murdered because they saw him with a voter's card. Just that the fact that his claim was that he had an elections card. So it tells you that there is somebody down there who has the people in the yard. That is why at all times, Mr. Liu, we are saying this, and we have always said it. The Anglophone crisis is something that government should look into. We, some politicians now are using it as a political stunt. Everybody now who wants to do anything is because of the Anglophone crisis, because of the Anglophone crisis. But I think that it has created an impact to tell the government that there are some people down there who have a kind of a grip on the people. And the grip they have is not by conviction, Mr. Liu. My grandmother, who should be watching me somewhere, does not stay in the house on Monday because she respects. She does not even have a phone that she will go on social media. No. At times I ask myself, Mr. Leo, how these messages are passed across. At one time in my 16, when I asked, I was doing a kind of a vox pop, I sat somewhere and I was like, how do you people get to know? There are days that once there is information, a very simple example is when the French ambassador was coming with a delegation to Boya, he was to come the next day, and these people, they have information even before those who are there. When he was to come to Boya, they already announcements that people should not. That was a kind of an extra ghost town. And I was like, how do people who stay in the quarters, far from town, who do not have the social media platforms like some of us that we get to know what is happening even out of Cameroon, how do they get to know that spontaneously tomorrow nobody comes out? It tells you that the Anglophone crisis is something that should be treated with a lot of tact, and that the approach, you don't use force, Mr. Liu. Force has never solved a problem anywhere. It is true the government says no government wants to withdraw its military from a war zone, because withdrawing your military from a war zone is an indirect indication to the international community that you have been defeated, and no government will do that.
That was not my question to you.
Mr. Liu, I answered your question well. You were asking about the impact. It's the impact I'm giving you.
Yes. Okay, we are going to, is it, when do you think it's going to be ripe for schools to resume? If people think that, if people think that's crucial.
Difficult question.
That is a very tricky one. I might not be the one to give the time,
yes,
per se, which the people should deem necessary to go to school. As long as I'm concerned, the time for school is now.
Okay.
And if some individuals think that might be the best way to deal with situations is insulting those who are talking about it, it's just an error. I want to be open and tell my fellow brothers and sisters out there that it is not for their benefit that this particular crisis keeps going on. At the onset of the crisis, some of us were in support of the fact that children should not go to school for that particular period of time as a way to show the government that, okay, we are angry, we need the government to react and solve the problems. When the teachers called for the boycott, we were okay with it. But long ago, the teachers had resumed their position of being teachers again. But where are people in school? Where are students? The students are not there. Who is keeping them out of school? Is no more the teachers. So the problem is no more in the hands of the teachers. Somebody has taken it over. And this person in question is not the person who is ready to solve the problem, because from what is on the ground, these particular people we are talking about do not want that these children should go to school.
Okay.
And they are benefiting from it, because the more the children stay at home, the more they have the opportunity to manipulate. And I think with that, it is not benefiting us who actually thought maybe it was a means to provoke the government to come for a table talk. And so I think if we are wise enough, it is time for us to rise up and make sure we execute the issue of sending our children to school.
Good evening, Mr. Liu. Education is key to success. Separatists should allow children to resume school. It means that if the so-called struggle takes 10 years, children will not go to school. And Bernard, writing from Yaoundé. Greetings to you all in the studio. Every reasonable people want schools to resume, but how enabling is the environment for that to happen? Tala is writing from K-Town. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I enjoy your program. It's Metuge writing from Tombel. Good evening to you, Metuge. Good evening to you in the studio. Greetings to all Cameroonians. It's a pity because when you people are talking like to me, it seems like it's talkless. Why? Because our leaders in Cameroon are all leaders by the powers, by the... Your message is not too clear. I don't know what you're trying to say. Good evening, Mr. Liu. It's Ibrahim from Bamenda. People are tired from should resume school. October, people are obeying ghost town because of fear. Okay. Good evening to you guys in the studio. How do schools resume when we have leaders taking wrong decisions which aggravate the crisis even more? Terence is writing from Mutengene. Good evening to you. I'm Chuck Thierry from Bamenda, Mile 2. I think we as Cameroonians need to be more prayerful because only God can help us in this crisis. Good evening, Mr. Liu. The so-called separatists and the government are confused because they both are enjoying the show. From Shefu Madaki, writing from Boya. Good evening, Mr. Liu, and the panelists are back to school is good, but what about the schools which have been burnt down? It is time we talk frankly about the current crisis. Metro Summer Collins, writing from Kumba Town. Good evening, please let the president go and go and sleep. Is Koyo Koyo. Okay, I don't know. This one says. We are going to take a short break. When we come back, we get discussing our second topic.